Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to another video game review. This time it is going to be on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Now this is the sequel to the really solid Link's Awakening remake, but there is a big difference between this and that game. It's that the original Link's Awakening never got a sequel, and this definitely changes up the formula in not only to Link's Awakening, but the entire Zelda series, as this is the first, well, not really the first, game where you actually get to play as Zelda, but it's certainly the best, because the others, well, they're just good for the memes and nothing else. The games themselves, oh man, that's a different story. But with Echoes of Wisdom, Link actually is the one that gets captured, and it's up to Zelda to save the world of Hyrule. And there is this little creature that comes throughout her adventure called Tri, because, you know, almost every Zelda game, you have to have a companion to accompany you, despite how annoying they can be. But Tri isn't annoying. Tri is actually a very helpful companion, as unlike Link, who can use combat, you know, whenever he needs to, apparently, you know, when you get combat, it's actually very limited, and you actually get his power for a little bit amount of time. But the main way you're going to be getting throughout this game is these things called echoes. And there are echoes that you can replicate these various things that you get throughout in order to solve different puzzles. You can use beds to use as bridges. You can use enemies that you find as bait, as they're going to be the ones using the combat the most, is by recreating those enemies. And you can do that a lot throughout the game. And the game definitely is, you know, far from being a walk in the park, because you're going to need to use a lot of echoes in order to get out. You're going to be finding all these different things that you're probably going to be needing to use later down the line. And throughout the game, you can mostly perform specific dungeons in any order you plead. I feel like that's kind of common with most newer Zelda games nowadays, but with this game, I feel like it tends to be far more different because, of course, it does a really good job at changing up the formula rather than just save the world, as it really takes the puzzle-solving skills to a new level. And while they're definitely very difficult at first, because when I started playing the game, you know, when I heard about the trailers, I never actually watched the trailers. I didn't know entirely what the whole story surrounding this game was about. I just knew that Zelda was going to be the protagonist this time around. So yeah, Legend of Zelda finally makes sense. And despite its art style, of course, being the same as in Link's Awakening, the game definitely has a lot more challenge to it than that game, because enemies can take a good amount of your hearts away, just like in games like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild. So you're going to have to find a lot of those heart containers in order to make it out alive. But thankfully, there's an easier way to heal, is when you use the beds. And each time you get a better bed later down the line when you go throughout your journey, healing even more HP. For a slow amount of time, but it's probably the best way to heal yourself. Another way to heal yourself, kind of like in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, is you can get ingredients to make other types of foods. So this time around, you can make smoothies. And there are other ways of getting specific stuff to make smoothies, you know, to boost your defense against lightning and fire and stuff like that. You're going to need to make a lot of smoothies because, again, these enemies can take a massive portion of your health away, and you're going to need as many of them as you can if you go up against the final boss. Now, when it comes to these specific dungeons, I did find myself struggling a lot, but it's something I kind of expected. You really need to get used to the echo system because that's the main mechanic of the entire thing. You don't really get any major, you know, full items like you would in any other Zelda game when you go and complete certain dungeons. You have to rely on the types of echoes you have. You have to go through all those echoes, and honestly, I will admit the menu system is kind of annoying because you just have to go through this long list of the echoes you collected, and it's completely disorganized. I know there was other ways of, you know, making it easier to navigate, but still, the menu is definitely something they could have easily fixed, making it a bit easier without having to go through all those echoes, because you get a lot, and I mean a lot of echoes. Some of them I don't really find myself using that much, specifically with various different statues and stones, because they're kind of useless. Every time I do get a new enemy, I use that enemy because, you know, it's more powerful. And of course, at first, your power that you get from Link definitely starts off weak at first, but you get these crystals that you can then use to upgrade your power That way, it will be a lot easier, obviously, because not only do you get to use a sword, you also get bows and arrows, you also get bombs, though I don't really see myself using bombs as much because there's this bomb fish that I saw myself using a lot throughout the game. And what I like about these echoes is that you don't have to wait for a specific time, like in a strategy game or something where you just have to wait for them to load back up. No, you can summon them whenever you want. And the more you upgrade the more you're able to use echoes more frequently and not having to worry about, just bringing out one at a time. Sometimes when you upgrade, you can bring two at a time, but of course, it's with very specific echoes throughout the game. And you're going to be exploring a lot. There's always a new area to try to explore. You can use various different items to like cheat your way through specific areas. Like I found myself using these water blocks to like swim all the way up in order to get to high places. It was always very helpful. And of course, you're going to be using beds a lot in order to get to one area to the next. So I feel like there's always a unique way of getting out of specific areas. And it's something that I definitely tried getting used to at first. But when I started playing it, I got truly annoyed. But it was much easier to learn when I was playing throughout the game. And there are a lot of side quests you can complete, but most of them are mostly just fetch quests like, can you bring me this specific monster? Like, can you use your echoes for this specific monster and show it to me? So, yeah, I don't really feel like the side quests have much of a purpose. I know some can give you like might crystals, which are those things I mentioned before that you can use to upgrade your combat abilities, and those are usually very helpful. But, I feel like that's pretty much the only reason you would even want to do the side quests. Now, throughout a lot of the game, before you can even go into the dungeons, you're going to have to be exploring these rifts, and where you have to get, like, these little companions, or these little, like, friends of tries that you have to get. And a lot of the time, it can get kind of repetitive when going to these dungeons, because there's something that you're going to have to be doing throughout a lot of the game before reaching the dungeon. But I can definitely say the bosses were certainly a lot of fun. And that's the thing. I really appreciate this game for being a sequel to a remake, but not just making it the same thing. I mean, this is a sequel that definitely feels like it's far more different. Despite it having the same art style, and despite you playing as Zelda, it adds a lot of creativity to the formula and the way that the gameplay plays out. It truly makes you feel like you're playing a strategic game rather than just your basic action game, as there are a lot of different ways to fight your way through the game, despite the fact that you yourself aren't going to be using combat as much. You're just going to be watching your enemies perform these combat styles against these enemies, but it's something that I found really unique. I mean, of course, like I mentioned before, you can use combat in the game. It's just during a limited amount of time. But yeah, I found myself having more fun as the game progressed, and while I did get frustrated a lot, just due to the fact that a lot of these puzzles don't really make all that much sense, I did see myself using a walkthrough throughout a lot of the game, and when I move on to another area and I see another puzzle that kind of gets confusing, it's just due to the fact that you have a lot of echoes to get, and you're going to need to try to get the best ones in order to complete this whole thing. But I feel like it's totally worth it, just exploring this world, seeing what the game has to offer in terms of side quests. The game is a lot longer than Link's Awakening 2, as that game can be beaten in like 9 to 10 hours. I feel like completing this entire thing will probably take you like more than 20, so yeah, I know there were things in Link's Awakening that I might have missed out on, but this one I feel like is definitely worth it with the amount of content that it has to offer, making it feel far more different and feeling fresh and new. And in the end, guys, Echoes of Wisdom truly is a unique title to add to the collection of Legend of Zelda games that are out there. I'm a massive fan of the series, and I can say this definitely didn't disappoint. It has a very unique concept behind it that works very, very well, and while it is kind of hard to get into at first, I feel like the more the game plays out and the more that there is to understand in using these echoes, it's definitely a lot more easier to get into, and it's something that I just had an absolute blast with. It truly is a unique experience that definitely feels far more different, and in some other ways, I can kind of see it being a little bit better than Link's Awakening, the remake, and I thought the remake was great. Despite what some people say in terms of, the dungeon making thing and the length of the game, I feel like this game definitely has a lot more to offer. as I feel like, it manages to bring new stuff to the franchise. And yeah, and people did complain about Tears of the Kingdom feeling too much of the same and just feeling like DLC. But I'll never agree with that. I still think there's a lot of stuff to that game that definitely separates it apart from that. And there are a lot of things that definitely, in this game, that definitely separate apart from this. So, bottom line is, this is an adventure that I loved playing through. And the fact that you're playing as the princess and not as the hero, it's really nice to see the princess be the hero once in a while because, hey, she's in the title and it makes sense. And by the end of it, it's truly a unique experience that I'll never forget. And there was a lot of wisdom behind this game, and the wisdom truly paid off. I was kind of thinking about giving it a 4 out of 5 just due to the fact that there were times where I just felt like the game kind of got a little too confusing with its puzzles. But hey, it's just due to the fact that sometimes I can be very bad at the game. So I kind of blame myself. And hey, the experience, there were just times in the game where it was just too hard for me to be too harsh on it. And I just had a blast with the adventure. It's fun to try and complete Zelda games. So yeah, it's one that I recommend trying to complete. I definitely did miss out on a lot of things, but I really should have done more. But Silent Hill 2 remake is actually getting a good amount of praise right now, and I really want to play that. So yeah, but hey, I still thought the game was a blast. So I highly recommend playing it if you're a fan of not just Link's Awakening, but the franchise as a whole. So yeah, but anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. We're out.